What is up, everybody? Sabaji and Satu. I am super stoked today. I just got out of work. I just got home. I ended up going out to wash my car. Went to the touchless car wash so I can quickly come home. And I decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get some flowers for tomorrow, because tomorrow and also Wednesday is the new moon. Sorry, not the moon. It's the full moon. Tomorrow's the full moon for the summer equinox. So, or solstice, one or the other. I think it's the equinox. Anyway, I'm super soaked because I'm going to do my flower prayers tonight and tomorrow as well. And also, I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to make something I haven't made in a long time, and that's Seitan. Seitan, spelled S-A-S-E-I-T-A-N. I was not a good spelling bee person, but this Seitan is full of vitamin Bs, B12, and all that stuff there. So I have to say that it's been a long time coming, and it has the texture of beef or steak, whenever you want to look at it, when you fry it up and all that stuff there, and or when you cook it with it. And it lasts a long time, you know. When you get like a big old pound or steak or whatever it is there at the market, it only lasts for a few days when you have it in the fridge. And of course, you can freeze it too. Seitan can be frozen, and it's a good frozen food, so you can actually freeze it. And its main ingredient is actually there is a video out by Mike the Vegan. I'm going to post the link in the description below, and he goes over Seitan, and if it's something that somebody who's gluten sensitive could actually still consume. The main ingredient, the star of Seitan, is actually a flour called vital wheat gluten, and you can get this at certain specialty markets and all that stuff. That you can go to your local grocery store as well. You can try to find them. It is kind of expensive, but once you find it, you see that it goes a long way. That bag that I just showed you, I can make about 3 batches of about like a pound's worth of meat, and just freeze it and all that stuff there, and do all kinds of stuff. I still have it in my freezer. Some of it is still frozen, but I decided, hey, I'm gonna make something fresh, something good. Fresh is so clean. Yeah, so I haven't even had time to even undress and get ready to make this stuff. So yeah, so I'm gonna actually show you some of the things that I do to make Seitan. Okay, so I'm gonna make about 2 cups worth of it, so I can actually use some of my stuff and refrigerate half of it, and so I can cook with it, and it lasts about 2 weeks actually. Obviously, you don't want to stay in the fridge too long, but you can freeze it just like you would with actual meat as well. So I'm going to make 2 pounds of it, and so what I do is I like to separate all the dry stuff with the wet stuff. Don't mind this whiskey; it's not going to go in it, but it's actually a buddy's birthday gift, and I'm going to give it to him later on. Anywho, the wet stuff I have over on this side here, and I've already started some of it and prepared it. For the wet stuff, you do need stock, so I have that, again, better than beef bouillon, no beef bouillon, completely vegan, and the better than bouillon vegetable stock. So what happens is the Seitan is going to be mixed with some wet ingredients, so you mold it, and it becomes like this mushy, grainy matter. And then it also gets cooked in a broth at a very low temperature for a while, about an hour's worth, and that broth can be used later on for like noodles or something like that. That's what I like to do as well. So I like to reuse my stuff as I'm going along. So I have the broth that I'm going to use. That's going to mix the vital wheat gluten with some of my wet ingredients that I have here. So what I did was I'm going to use the beef stock for the actual Seitan, and then I'm going to cook it in the vegetable broth stock that I'm going to make, and already started going already at a low temperature. So multitasking, coming along. So I have 2 cups worth of the dry vital wheat gluten, and I have half a cup of nutritional yeast. Now, nutritional yeast you can find as well in those same places. I find in and they have like a specialty area of the supermarkets. But it has lots of good stuff, vitamin B's and all that stuff there, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, which is B4, I think thiamine was B1 or B2, but basically all the B's, B6, B9, which is folate, B12, so it has all kinds of good stuff. But you just beware, if you have somebody with high blood pressure and they're going towards the plant-based, they're just kind of starting a plant-based diet, a lot of these plant-based things, anytime you're trying to mimic something, it's all spices and salts. That's how you actually get to this stuff here. So what happens is, as you're trying to do it, you may actually kind of interact with it, and it may kind of give a spike, more likely to do a spike in their blood pressure, and they may be kind of turned off by their healthcare professional. So it should be discussed and also taken into consideration. So low salt if you can. So I like to add onion powder as well. I'm going to do, because I'm making 2 pounds worth, or actually 2 cups worth of it, I'm going to do a nice tablespoon of onion powder. The garlic powder is actually pretty strong, so I'm going to do half a tablespoon of garlic powder. I do like to have my foods kind of a little bit on the spicy side, so I'm going to probably do a nice teaspoon of, about a teaspoon, because I'm making 2 pounds worth of it, of red chili flakes. Woo! That's going to be spicy. All my friends who like spicy foods. Curry powder. You can always make it in any way you want. I'm going to add curry. Not a lot of it. Curry is actually pretty strong, but curry does give it a little bit of an earthy taste as well. And that's what a lot of meat is, and it's like this earthy taste. And I said from my last video that oregano is a really good earthy kind of spice or herb. So I'm going to, that's a good thing I had it over my spoon. I'm going to spice it up with a good tablespoon of that. Add some paprika. I'm going to put a little bit of paprika in there because I do like it kind of on the red side, so that way it mimics meat. So I'm going to go a good 2 teaspoons and make it red. I do like it spicy. No, not spicy, like kind of have a spice, so looks like I'm going to need more ground. I like ground, cracked ground black pepper, but this is already ground up to me, so I do like pepper. Okay, so that's going to be mixed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix it up and get it prepared for the wet ingredients. Okay, now the wet ingredients I've already started. I may actually add a little bit more red paprika because I do want it to look red and kind of meat-like, so just add a little bit more. I'm going to eye it. I shouldn't do the eyeing, but I like the eye method because I'm just cooking for myself, nobody else. Okay, I do like to make a mess too. I'm not a clean cook, but I do clean after I cook. Okay, so I already told you that I'm going to use the Better Than Beef bouillon, no beef bouillon stock. I'm going to salt it up a little bit with some. I already have some of the salt from the nutritional yeast. I'm going to add a little bit of maybe a tablespoon of soy sauce. Now, for some reason, I felt like I'm going to make it kind of like a kind of a sweet, kind of flavored steak or something like that. So I'm going to use. You can find these liquid smokes anywhere, and I'm going to use this maple applewood smoke because it gives it a little bit of sweetness. It hints at it too. Now I can even sweeten it even further if I want to. So again, if somebody's diabetic, I have 2 different sweeteners that you can actually substitute it with to actually really bring out the sweetness of it. You know, when you kind of cooking into this stuff here. All right. So I'm going to add not a lot, probably less than this little tiny spoon. It's not a teaspoon, but this little spoon here. So a few drops of that. That hint will actually come in. And it can overpower it, okay, that smoke smell. That's liquid smoke there. Now, I can use the sugar-free maple syrup, or I can use my agave, and I'm probably going to use the maple syrup today. Okay, so a good tablespoon of this. Good. So if you're like, hey, how'd you make the stock? Directions are on it. So basically, one little teaspoon of of the bouillon with 1 cup of water will actually give you a stock. I guess stock flavor. Alright, so I'm going to actually use a little bit of this buttery oil, which is, it's basically, looking at this here, it's just soybean oil and artificially colored with beta carotene, which is the stuff that you find in carrots. Okay, so I'm going to use not a lot, but the reason why I'm actually using the oil, I typically don't use oil for my my seitan, but I'm going to use the oil this time because I do want it to kind of have a more mushy texture, and that actually makes it very kind of easy to cut into. I typically don't do that, so it makes it very tough, sturdy. When you make those nice cuts, it makes it very sturdy. So I like to make like beef jerky out of the seitan that I have. All right. So here we go. As you start adding, you don't want to add too much immediately, and you can use your spoon and just stir it around, and the water gets picked up by the Vital wheat gluten really well, and it just makes all these little clumps and all that stuff there as it's going along. And just keep adding the water, and it just picks it up. Okay, be careful breathing in the as well, because it does pick up a lot of moisture. And the good thing about cooking, for me, I like the cooking of the plant-based, because a lot of these it's really water soluble, except for the oil that I just put in. So it makes it really, really easy to cook and clean up. So as I'm making a mess and all that stuff there, I just get some water, rinse my hands really quickly, and I don't have to worry about cross-contamination if I'm actually cooking and preparing even my my veggies and stuff like that. Okay, so here we go. It's making this nice brain matter Play-Doh, playing with your food here. Okay, so I didn't use the whole batch that I have, because I have a feeling that all this water is going to get soaked up by this. When you actually start mixing this here, you're going to knead the heck out of it, okay? And the kneading is actually very important to knead it like crazy. The longer you knead it, the better. It's recommended 10 minutes of kneading, kneading the dough that you actually have here, okay? And you get all those nice little layers. So the reason for all those layers that you do is so that way when you cut into it, it actually looks like the fibers of the meat that you're used to cutting into. So if you have steak, you know, you cut into it, there are fibers. You cut with the grain or whatever. So I actually used a little bit too much fluid stock, but that's fine. I'm going to actually put it with the stock that's going to be used for the cooking part. Okay, so here it is. Okay, guys. So what I see when I strip it, you can see all those layers. Okay, and so what's happening? This made it actually easier with the oil that was in there. So what's happening is I get all these nice little fibers. Okay, so why did I do this here? This so that way, because I have a big giant chunk, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually make smaller and smaller pieces, and I'm going to throw it into the stock. This way it can actually start cooking and really fully growing properly. Now when I said growing, the reason why the seitan can go a long way is that I said that this will make about like 2 pounds worth of meat. And you hear like, oh, that doesn't look like that much. Okay, when you put it in, it actually almost doubles in size. So all this here is probably going to grow pretty big. So think of those weird science experiments that you had. Okay, so I'm going to keep at this. Alright, so I got my broth going. And I'm going to stir it up one more time very quickly. The extra broth that I had that was used to mix the seitan piece, ended up just throwing it in here. So it has it already has smoke in there and all that stuff there. I don't really have to add any more stuff. And so I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to put it in for about 20 minutes and come back, flip the piece. And like I said, these pieces are going to grow like extra large. So I'll show you what it looks like in about 20 minutes. Oh yeah, guys. Alright, it's about the 20-minute mark. I'm about to flip this, and when I open this up, you're going to see what I'm talking about here. Kind of have the heat a little bit high, but that's fine. Watch how big that one little piece, if I can find which one I had. Oh, look at that. Look how big that grew. Okay. Now you do remember how big it was before. It was, you know, about like that big, and it did pretty much grow. So think of that science experiment they have, that you know, It's growing! It's going to keep growing, actually. So the heat actually allows it to grow, and this was the smaller piece, and it did grow. It's going to grow again. This is what I talked about before about the searing. It actually seared a bit, so I'm going to flip it. Oops. Okay, float it around. Oh, look at this giant piece here. Oh my God! Oh, brains! Alright, cool. Alright, it's going to keep going there. I got the heat going low. I'm going to keep it a little bit longer than 20 minutes this time, but yeah, you get to see. It will grow and it keep growing. So the reason I broke it into smaller pieces is because before I actually kept it as one giant piece, and it would grow, but it wouldn't grow that big. And I cut into it, and it still tasted like it didn't really always have the taste there. So I noticed that when I did it smaller, it allowed for the surface area to really expand, soak in all those flavors that I have in the broth there, and just become, you know, more flavorful that way. So that's basically it there. All right, cool. But once this is all done, what I like to do is I like to keep the broth for like noodles, or let's say if I'm gonna make pho, because it's already by the way, that's like Vietnamese rice noodle soup. It's already like a beef base, so I would like to keep that for the pho, and I can chop this meat here and make the pho with it. Awesome, right? So while this seitan is being enlarged in the broth, quick little numbers, so that way you can kind of understand what's going on. You're like, hey, you know what? Is it really worth doing this here? If you want to, you can do the research for it. But I'm going to go by the numbers on the package. Okay. So again, the main ingredient was the vital wheat gluten. I made 2 cups of it. So a quarter cup. This is where all the protein comes from. All right. So a quarter cup here says that it contains 23 grams. So I used 2 cups. So 23 times 4, you're looking at 92, right? 92 grams times 2, because I used 2 cups of that. 92 times 2, we're looking at like 180. Let's round up to 185. Okay, so it's about 185 grams of protein for that large thing, and of course that's going to be cut up. As far as vitamin B's and all that stuff there, the nutritional yeast, there's about 8 grams of protein in this here per 1.5 tablespoons. I used, again, half a cup. So 1.5 tablespoons, let's see, there's 2 tablespoons is an ounce, and an ounce is 4 ounces is half a cup. So 4 times that. Oh God, I lost the math. Anyway, let's round up to about like 4. Let's do 2.5 of these things. You're looking at another 16 grams of protein just from the nutritional yeast that I added in there with all the vitamin B. But I know it's a little bit more than that. I just don't have a calculator. I'm not really an Asian. So here's the other things that are important. I already mentioned it earlier for those that are diabetic or have hypertension. You're going to want to pay attention to these numbers when you're making your own plant-based protein. So as far as the stock goes, the one that actually went into the into the vital wheat gluten and the nutritional yeast, I use this one here. So 1 teaspoon mixed with 1 cup of water to make the stock yields about 670 milligrams of salt. That's a lot of sodium for a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand that. Remember, that's just to make the whole 2 pounds of that, and you're not going to cut the whole thing. Again, I used a tablespoon of this, so 3 teaspoons of this here. So 1 teaspoon of soy sauce yields 320 milligrams of salt, or the sodium. So times 3, so 320 times 3, we're looking at 960 milligrams of that. Again, you're already looking at 1.6, almost like 1.7 grams of salt. Now, the daily nutritional salt intake that you're supposed to take in is 3 grams, I think it is, 3 grams per day. That's the limit they should be at. So you're not going to eat the whole thing here, but it's still a high salt content. You do want to be careful, especially if somebody is looking to get off of a salt diet, so that way their kidneys are not compromised. So again, you can actually really make it so that way it becomes low salt, and you can actually cut the portions too, because remember, you're using you're not going to eat the whole 2 pounds of that meat that I'm going to be making. I'm going to be cutting these little tiny pieces. It's not going to have all that, so you kind of divide it up, you know. So, and yes, the nutritional yeast here does contain quite a bit of salt. Again, as I said before, 30 milligrams. I used like half a cup, so that's again, I'm going to say about 90, close to 90 milligrams. So that's not even that's not 1 gram. It's not close to 1 gram yet. But still, all that salt is being put in there. So, and as far as the sugar content, yes, you're using a dough. Yes, you're using a flour, and it is, you know, it's going to be broken down like a slow-based carbohydrate, like let's get like brown rice. Those are healthy carbs that you're looking at. So it will break it down, you know, in a better content, a better way. And also the sugar that I used, which was the sugar-free maple syrup. That again, it's not going to have the sugars, the carbs that a diabetic would have to worry about. So it is. You do want to be careful when making it, though. It's not the end-all be-all thing for everybody, because this can be made in any way. Luckily for me, I don't have those conditions yet, I'd say. Hopefully I don't, but I do eat a high carb, low fat diet as much as possible. But I do consider myself a junk food vegan or junk food plant-based eater, because I eat a lot of potato chips, which contains lots and lots of oils. So I avoid a lot of the oils when I cook, but when I'm, you know, just not feeling it, I just open up a bag of chips, and there we go. And there goes all the hard work that I've been putting in. But yeah, I try to maintain myself and try to be as healthy as possible. So in another, you know, so many minutes, the meat's gonna be ready. So.